On a peaceful summer morning at my coastal home, my daughter-in-law walked into the kitchen, pointed toward my bedroom, and said, "You need to move out before my parents arrive. That RV park smelling of motor oil is exactly where someone like you belongs." My son sat at his laptop, never looking up, and muttered, "Mom, just give in this time to keep the peace." I placed my coffee down, looked at the two people I had sheltered for 6 months, and realized they had no idea whose house they were standing in. If you found your way here today, I believe you were meant to hear this. Tell me in the comments, what city or country are you joining us from? You are part of something special here at Silent Revenge with Auntie May. A note: before we begin, certain details have been thoughtfully fictionalized for narrative purposes. Similarities to any names or places are purely coincidental. The wisdom, however, is entirely intended. The morning light came in low and golden through the kitchen windows, rolling across the granite countertop in long, warm bands. I stood at the island with both hands wrapped around my coffee mug, watching the Pacific stretch out flat and blue beyond the back porch. 30 years of night shifts had trained my body to treasure mornings like this one, quiet, unhurried mine. On the shelf above the stove, Thomas smiled back at me from inside his silver frame. 8 years gone, and I still caught myself turning to tell him things. I had given Ethan and his wife Amber the guest wing 6 months ago, while their new house was still being framed out in Pasadena. It was supposed to be temporary. It always is with these things. In those 6 months, Amber had rearranged my kitchen cabinets to suit her organic meal prep, claimed the front living room as her remote office, and suggested twice that my reading chair on the back porch was more practical for me than the main sitting room. Each time Ethan had touched my arm and whispered, "Just let it go, Mom. It's temporary," I had let it go, every single time. Amber walked into the kitchen at 7:43 that Monday morning wearing a pressed blazer and her expression of permanent, mild impatience. She did not say good morning. She tapped the face of her watch against the granite island, glanced toward the hallway that led to my bedroom suite, and spoke. "My parents' flight lands next Friday. I need you out of the master suite before they get here. They'll be staying there for the summer. You can pack your things and move out to that RV park near the bay. Think of it as a little vacation." The coffee mug warmed my palms. I kept my voice level. "You are telling me to leave my own home, Amber." She smiled a brief, practiced curve that never reached her eyes. "Don't make it dramatic. My parents are in business. They have joint problems and they need the ground floor suite." She adjusted her watch strap and looked at me the way someone looks at furniture they're deciding whether to keep. "And you, 30 years emptying bedpans and wiping down patients at a county hospital, what exactly do you know about living well? That nursing salary of yours barely paid for the fixtures in this kitchen. An RV park with the smell of motor oil is honestly more your speed." My chest tightened so hard I felt it in my back teeth. 30 years. 30 years of coated blues and crashing carts and holding strangers' hands while their hearts gave out, and this woman was using it as an insult. I turned to Ethan. He sat at the dining table, shoulders curved over his laptop fingers, moving across the keyboard with sudden great purpose. "Ethan," my voice came out steadier than I felt, "do you have something to say?" He cleared his throat without looking up. "Mom Amber just wants her parents to be comfortable. It's only a few months. Can you just let it go this once? The two people living rent-free in my home were telling me which rooms I was permitted to occupy." I set my mug down on the granite, carefully. I took my jacket from the hook by the door, and I walked outside into the California morning. The door clicked shut behind me softly, the way Thomas always said a door should close. I did not look back. The garden behind the house was the one place on this property that had never changed. Thomas had built the cedar bench himself the summer before his diagnosis, positioning it at an angle where you could see both the lavender beds and the water at the same time. I had sat on that bench through every hard thing that had come, since the funeral arrangements the first Christmas alone, the night Ethan called to say he and Amber were expecting, and then 4 months later, that they weren't. The bench had held all of it without complaint. I appreciated that in a piece of furniture. I sat down now and pressed my palms flat against my thighs. 6 months. I ran through it the way I used to run through a patient chart before a difficult conversation, methodically, without flinching. 6 months of Amber rearranging my cabinets and calling it efficiency. 6 months of Ethan saying, just let it go every time I tried to name what was happening. 6 months of shrinking my reading chair moved to the porch. My kitchen routines quietly overwritten my presence in my own home, renegotiated inch by inch, without my consent. And this morning, she had looked me in the face and told me to leave. Thomas's voice came back to me, the way it always did when I needed it most low and certain. This house is yours, Maggie. No one else's, ever. I pulled out my phone. While I was in the garden, I also made a second call to Sandra's office. I asked her assistant to run a background check on Gerald and Diane Whitfield. It was something I had learned in 30 years of nursing. Before you respond to a problem, you find out exactly what you are dealing with. Arthur Devlin had been installing and servicing locks along this stretch of Pacific Coast Highway for over 25 years. He had rekeyed this house once when we first bought it, and once after Thomas passed, and I wanted every lock changed just to feel the house was fully mine again. He was steady, discreet, and he never asked more questions than the job required. Arthur's lock and key. His voice was the same as always, unhurried, reliable. Arthur, it's Margaret Hollis over on the PCH. Margaret. I could hear the warmth in it. Everything all right out there? I thought your boy was staying with you for a while? Everything is perfectly fine, I said, keeping my tone crisp and even. I've been meaning to upgrade the exterior security before tourist season gets any heavier. I'd like electronic keypads on all exterior doors, front entry, side door, and the garage. High security grade, access restricted to a single master code. A brief pause. That's a full hardware replacement. I'm aware. Can you come tomorrow morning? I can be there at 8:30, Arthur said. I'll bring the commercial-grade deadbolts, the good ones. Thank you, Arthur. I ended the call and sat for a moment with the phone warm in my hand, looking at the lavender. Thomas had planted it the same week he built the bench, said purple was the color of people who knew their own minds. I had laughed at him then. I was not laughing now, but I understood what he meant. I stood up, smoothed my slacks, and walked back toward the house. Through the kitchen window, I could see Amber at the island typing on her tablet, completely assured that the conversation this morning had settled something in her favor. She glanced up when I came through the door. Her eyes moved across my face, searching for the red rims of tears, the tight jaw of someone barely holding herself together. I gave her nothing but a pleasant nod and reached for the kettle. Tomorrow at 8:30, I thought. Let her enjoy today. I drove into Santa Monica with the windows down and the radio off. The Pacific Coast Highway curved along the water the way it always did, patient and unhurried, as if the ocean beside it had nowhere better to be. I had driven this stretch of road for 31 years. Thomas and I used to take it on Sunday mornings. No destination, just the water and the wind and the particular quiet of two people who had run out of things to prove to each other. I pressed my foot a little harder on the accelerator and focused on what I had come to do. Frank Reyes had managed my personal finances at Pacific Trust Bank for 11 years. He was methodical, thorough, and blessedly unsentimental, exactly what I needed that morning. He stood when I walked into his office, hand extended. Margaret, this is unexpected. Sit down. What can I do for you? I need to separate my personal accounts from the household expense pool immediately, I said, settling into the chair across from his desk. And I need the secondary debit card issued to my son canceled before end of business today. Frank's expression did not flicker. He pulled up my accounts on his screen fingers, moving quickly. Done and done. Anything else? Yes, I leaned forward slightly. I need you to calculate the total cost of housing 2 additional adults in my home for 6 months. Market rate rent for a beachfront property in Santa Monica, utilities, groceries, internet, everything I have been absorbing. I need a precise figure in writing that I can reference at a moment's notice. Frank's eyebrows rose a fraction. Then he nodded slowly with the particular expression of a man who understood he was watching someone build a case. I'll have it ready within the hour. Frank was thorough. He pulled the utility bills I had forwarded to him quarterly for tax purposes, cross-referenced them against the Santa Monica rental index for beachfront properties, and added the grocery charges from the household account I had already flagged for separation. He had always said that numbers do not lie, people do. The figure he handed me before I left read $15,240. I folded it into my bag without a word. Sandra Okafor's law office sat 3 blocks from the water on the second floor of a building that smelled of good coffee and old case files. Sandra had been my attorney and my friend for 15 years. She had handled the estate after Thomas passed, and she had the rare quality of speaking plainly without being unkind. She listened without interrupting as I laid out the situation. When I finished, she set down her pen. "Ethan and Amber have no lease agreement with you," she said. "That makes them licensees under California law, not tenants. The legal distinction matters enormously. A tenant has significant protections. A licensee has almost none. Meaning I control access to my own property. Completely. You can change the locks, restrict entry, and require them to leave." She paused. "To be thorough, I'd recommend a formal written notice, a 30-day notice to vacate under California Civil Code, Section 1946. It protects you from any future claim that you acted improperly, even when you're entirely in the right documentation matters." "Prepare it," I said, "but don't serve it yet. I'll tell you when." Sandra picked up her pen again, and something in her expression, steady, certain, settled something in my chest that had been pulling tight since 7:43 that morning. "You have every right, Margaret," she said. "Every single one." I thanked her and walked back down to the street into the bright California afternoon. By the time I reached my car, I felt the particular calm that always came to me before a difficult procedure, not the absence of feeling, but the presence of clarity. I knew exactly what came next. The sun was dropping behind the tree line by the time I pulled into the driveway, painting the sky above the water in shades of copper and deep rose. Through the front window, I could see the blue flicker of a television. Amber was on the phone in the kitchen, her voice carrying that particular elevated pitch she used when performing contentment for whoever was on the other end of the line. Ethan was on the back porch. He sat in the chair Thomas used to favor, the wide cedar one at the far left, angled toward the water. He had a beer in his hand, untouched, the condensation running down the bottle in thin streams. He heard the screen door and turned, and something moved across his face. Guilt, I thought, or the beginning of it. I pulled the other chair close and sat down across from him. The tide was coming in, rolling up the sand in long, even breaks. "Your father built this porch the summer you turned 9, I said. "Do you remember that?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Mom, do you remember?" He exhaled through his nose. "Yes, I remember." "Then you understand why I will not be leaving it." He set the beer down on the railing and dragged a hand across the back of his neck, the way he had done since he was a teenager, whenever he was cornered by something true. "Amber's parents are difficult people. She just wants them to feel welcome. The RV park really isn't Ethan." I said his name the way I used to say it when he was 12 and trying to talk his way around something he already knew was wrong. "This house was purchased with your father's life insurance and 30 years of night shifts. I have slept in that bedroom for 22 years. I will not be moved from it for a summer visit or for any other reason." His voice tightened, and I heard the strain in it, the sound of a man pulling in 2 directions at once. "She's my wife, Mom. You're making this so much harder than it has to be." "I am not making anything." My hands were steady on the armrests, but my chest ached with a fullness I could not name. "I am simply declining to disappear. You are welcome to find additional space somewhere else. I will help you look if you'd like." "I didn't think you'd actually push back like this," he said, and his voice cracked slightly on the last word, raw in a way that broke something open behind my sternum. "I know you didn't." I looked at him steadily. This man I had carried and raised and loved past every version of myself. "That has been the problem for 6 months. I stood up and smoothed my jacket. "I love you," I said. "That is not in question, and it never will be. But love is not the same thing as surrender. It never was." I left him on the porch with the tide coming in and the beer going warm in his hand, staring out at the water with the particular expression of a man who had just run out of comfortable things to believe. I was on my second cup of coffee when the white service truck rolled up the driveway at 8:29. Arthur Devlin was a broad-shouldered man in his early 60s with calloused hands and a gray mustache that had been the same shape for as long as I had known him. He climbed out of the truck unhurriedly the way men do when they have spent decades being exactly what they say they are. He pulled on his work gloves, glanced at the front entry, and gave me a single nod through the kitchen window. I was already reaching for my clipboard. I met him on the porch with the signed work order in hand. He looked it over, lips moving slightly, and gave a low whistle. "Full exterior replacement, electronic keypads on all 4 entries." He tucked the order under his arm. "You want the commercial grade, the best you have? Done." He crouched down to examine the existing deadbolt on the front door, running a thumb along the plate. "These are original hardware, Margaret. Good bones, but 15 years old. Past time." He had just opened his first toolbox when the front door swung open behind me. Amber stepped onto the porch in her blazer coffee in hand, eyes moving from Arthur to the toolboxes spread across the welcome mat. The coffee cup stopped halfway to her lips. "What is this?" Her voice carried that particular edge, not quite a question, more a warning dressed as one. "Why is there a van blocking the driveway?" "Arthur is upgrading the exterior locks," I said. Her eyes snapped to me. "We don't need new locks. My parents need a key that's easy to turn. Electronic keypads are completely unnecessary, and frankly, this is not a collaborative decision, Amber." I kept my voice pleasant the way I used to keep it pleasant with difficult families in the ICU waiting room, firm beneath the surface immovable. "Arthur, please begin with the front entry." Amber's jaw tightened. She turned toward the doorway where Ethan had just appeared, still in yesterday's shirt, a mug of coffee warming both his hands. "Ethan," her voice dropped, sharpened, "tell your mother this is completely unreasonable. She's wasting money on hardware when we should be getting the guest rooms ready." Ethan looked at the toolboxes. He looked at Arthur. Then he looked at me, and I watched something shift behind his eyes, some internal calculation that had been running since last night, finally reaching its conclusion. The muscle in his jaw worked once. "Amber," he said quietly, "just let her do it. It's her house." Amber's head turned toward him so fast I heard her earrings move. She stared at him for one long, electrified moment, her chest rising with a sharp breath she did not release. Then she stepped back inside and closed the door behind her, not a slam, which surprised me, but a deliberate, controlled click that somehow carried more fury than a slam ever could. Arthur glanced up from the lock plate. He said nothing. He simply picked up his drill set, the bit, and got to work. By noon, every exterior entry on my property had a new face. Arthur handed me a single physical key and walked me through the keypad setup master code for me alone and a temporary access code for Ethan that would expire Friday at noon. I also programmed a separate limited access code for Gerald and Diane, valid from their scheduled Friday arrival through the following Friday at noon, covering the full duration of their planned stay. Amber received no code of her own. She had made it clear she expected to run this house. I saw no reason to make that easier for her. I programmed the master code standing right there on the front porch in the full California sun. It felt like signing my name to something that had always been true. At 10:05, the Ring doorbell chimed. I was at the kitchen table with a legal pad going over a list of items I wanted, moved into my locked office upstairs when the notification lit up my phone screen. I tapped it open. On the camera feed, a delivery driver was stacking white foam coolers on the front porch, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, each stamped with the logo of a premium seafood company out of Marina del Rey. He arranged them in a neat row, had me digitally sign through the app, and drove away without a word. I set my phone face down on the table and went back to my list. The coolers contained fresh Dungeness, crab Pacific oysters, jumbo shrimp, and 2 whole sea bass. I knew because Amber had announced the menu at dinner 2 nights ago with the enthusiasm of someone who had already decided the party was hers to host. She had planned a welcoming BBQ for her parents on Friday evening. She had ordered enough seafood to feed 12 people. What she had not planned for was the fact that she no longer had a key to get inside. By 11:30, the temperature on the front porch had climbed to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. I know this because I checked the weather app while I was making lunch. Santa Monica in July does not negotiate with seafood. The Ring doorbell chimed again, this time the live button. Amber calling through the speaker from the front porch. Her voice came through the small device with a crackling urgency that she was working very hard to keep controlled. "Margaret, the seafood delivery is sitting outside in the heat. I need you to open the door so I can bring it inside." I picked up my phone, pressed the reply button, and kept my voice the way I kept it, with agitated patience, measured clear without a single unnecessary syllable. "I am not your housekeeper, Amber. I never was. Your groceries are right there at your feet. You are welcome to take them wherever you plan to cook." A pause. Then, "This is completely unreasonable. Open the door right now." "Have a good morning." I released the button and set the phone back down. I heard her from inside, the sharp sound of her palm hitting the doorframe once hard, and then her footsteps crossing the porch, back and forth, the way an animal paces when it has run out of room. I called Ethan's cell phone. He picked up on the second ring, traffic audible behind him. "I'm in a meeting in 20 minutes, Mom." "The seafood Amber ordered has been delivered to the front porch," I said. "I wanted you to be aware." A long pause. "She doesn't have the new code." "No," I said pleasantly. "She does not." He exhaled a long, slow breath that carried something heavier than frustration. "I can't leave work right now." He was in Culver City, 40 minutes away in midday traffic, with a product review meeting that had been scheduled for 3 weeks. Even if he had left immediately, the seafood would have been sitting in 86-degree heat for over 2 hours by the time he arrived. There was nothing to save. We both knew it. "I understand completely. I just wanted you to know." I ended the call and returned to my legal pad. From the kitchen window, I had a clear sightline to the front porch. By noon, the first flies had found the coolers. Carol Jennings, my neighbor of 14 years, a sharp-eyed retired schoolteacher who missed nothing that happened on this block, had come out to water her roses and was watching the situation with the careful, unhurried attention of someone filing details away for later. She caught my eye through the window. She shook her head once slowly and went back to her roses. I found the sign in the garage left over from the estate sale we had held the year after Thomas passed, a square of weathered plywood with "sale" painted across it in thick black letters. I added garage in front of it with a marker, wrote "Everything $1" across the bottom, and carried it out to the front yard just after noon. The items on the folding table had all been purchased with my own money. That was the part Amber had apparently not considered when she spent the better part of last week dragging them out of the house and stacking them near the front fence. Clearing space, she said, for her parents' things. My KitchenAid coffee maker. The decorative lanterns I had bought at the farmer's market on Main Street 3 summers ago. A set of copper mixing bowls I had owned since before Ethan was born. All of it arranged on my lawn like things that had been discarded because Amber had decided they had been. I set up the table, positioned the sign against the fence post, and went inside to refill my coffee. Carol Jennings appeared at the property line within 4 minutes. She was wearing her gardening hat and carrying a canvas tote, and she looked at the table with the expression of a woman who understood exactly what she was witnessing. "That's a good coffee maker," she said. $1, I said. She put it in her bag. Word traveled the way it does in a neighborhood where people still walk to the mailbox and stop to talk. Within 20 minutes, a young couple from 2 blocks over had taken the copper bowls. A man I recognized from the Saturday farmers market carried off the lanterns. A teenager on a bicycle stopped, looked over the remaining items with serious concentration, and left with a French press and a ceramic serving platter. Amber heard it from somewhere inside, or perhaps she saw it through a window because she came out through the side yard at a pace that was almost running, her face flushed, and her voice pitched high with outrage. "Those are my things!" She planted herself between the table and the remaining neighbor's arms, spread like she could physically stop the transaction. "You cannot sell my things. I want everyone to stop. Those items belong to me." I looked at her calmly from my position beside the fence post. "Every item on this table was purchased with my money, Amber. I have the receipts, my credit card, my name for every single one of them. You removed them from my home and arranged them on my property without my permission. If you believe you have a legal claim to any of it, you are welcome to call the Santa Monica non-emergency line. Sandra Okafor's number is also on file if you prefer that route. I will wait right here either way." Her mouth opened. Then it closed. Carol Jennings, who had been watching from the sidewalk with her canvas tote held loosely in both hands, nodded once at me and walked back toward her house. The table was empty by 1:45. Amber stood in the yard staring at the bare folding table with her arms wrapped tight around her own ribs, her breath coming fast and shallow. She looked like someone who had just discovered that the rules she'd been playing by were not, in fact, the rules. It was at that moment that the front door opened and Gerald Whitfield stepped out onto the porch, arms folded across his chest, jaw set forward, wearing the expression of a man who had spent a lifetime solving problems by making himself large in a room. He looked at the empty table. He looked at me. "I think," he said in the measured tone of someone accustomed to boardrooms, "that it is time for the adults to have a conversation." I did not invite Gerald inside. I stood in the doorway with one hand on the frame and waited while he descended the porch steps and positioned himself on the front path with the particular stance of a man who believed physical space was a negotiating tool. He was heavy-set, somewhere in his late 50s, with the kind of tan that came from outdoor lunches rather than outdoor work. Diane Amber's mother, a thin woman with careful posture and an expression of permanent mild suffering, trailed behind him and stopped 2 steps back as though she had learned long ago to leave room for Gerald's performances. "Mrs. Hollis." Gerald clasped his hands in front of him. "My daughter has been managing this household for 6 months. Cooking, cleaning, organizing, running errands. That kind of domestic contribution has real monetary value, and we feel as a family that $2,000 is a fair and reasonable acknowledgement of her time and effort." I looked at him for a moment. Then I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. "I appreciate you raising that," I said. "Let me get someone on the line who can help us with the numbers." I dialed Frank Reyes. He picked up on the first ring as I had asked him to when I called from the car that morning. I had told him, simply, "I may need you to read a number out loud this afternoon. Be available." Frank had not asked why. That was one of the things I valued most about him. "Frank," I said, "I have a question about the household expense summary you prepared for me today. Could you read me the total figure?" Frank's voice came through the speaker, unhurried and precise. "Of course. 6 months of fair market rent for a beachfront property in Santa Monica, $4,200 per month utilities, groceries, internet, and household supplies absorbed by the account holder. Total cost to you over the period $15,240. I watched Gerald's face as Frank read the number. The boardroom confidence drained out of it the way color drains from a face in a waiting room when the doctor's expression says what the words haven't yet. "Thank you, Frank." I ended the call and looked back at Gerald. If Amber would like to submit an invoice for housekeeping services, I am happy to deduct it from the $15,240 she and Ethan currently owe me. She will still owe the remaining balance. "Shall I have my attorney prepare the paperwork, or would your family prefer to settle directly?" Gerald's jaw moved. No sound came out. Diane put her hand on his arm. Not a comforting touch, a stopping one. Her fingers pressed into his sleeve with quiet urgency, and Gerald, to his credit, heard the message clearly. "That won't be necessary." He said, his voice stripped of its boardroom polish, flattened down to something much smaller. I didn't think so. I kept my tone pleasant. Is there anything else? Neither of them answered. I became aware of Ethan then standing just inside the hallway behind me, close enough to have heard every word, far enough back to have stayed invisible. When I turned, he was staring at the floor, both hands pressed flat against the wall on either side of him, like a man trying to hold himself upright against something he could no longer argue with. He did not say a word, but his face said everything. Before I tell you what Ethan found when he drove out there alone, comment the word "waiting" below, so I know you are still here with me. Every single comment means the world. A gentle note, some details in the story ahead have been crafted for storytelling purposes and may not reflect any specific events. If that is not the kind of content you are looking for, this is a good moment to step away and find something that suits you better. Ethan left the house at 2:30 without telling anyone where he was going. I watched his car back out of the driveway from the kitchen window carefully, the way he always drove when something was working itself out in his head. He had not changed out of the shirt he had slept in. I did not stop him. Some things a person has to go and look at directly before they can believe them. Pacific Cove RV Park sat 12 minutes up the coast, tucked between a storage facility and a bait shop on a stretch of highway that smelled of salt and motor oil. I had never been inside it. I knew it existed the way you know most things in a town you have lived in for 30 years peripherally, without interest. Ethan told me what happened there later that evening, sitting on the back porch with his hands wrapped around a mug of tea he had made himself and not touched. Dale Hutchins managed Pacific Cove the way certain men manage things. They take quiet pride in, efficiently, without fanfare, and with a complete intolerance for nonsense. He was 50-ish, broad across the shoulders with the kind of voice that carried easily across an open lot. Ethan walked into the office and asked about a reservation under the name Hollis. Dale pulled it up, looked at the screen, looked at Ethan. Hollis Margaret. He turned the monitor slightly so Ethan could see it. That reservation was canceled this morning, 7:03 a.m. Account holder called it in herself and flagged the record. Ethan's stomach dropped so fast he felt it in his knees. My mother canceled it. The original booking was submitted under her name and her billing information. Dale leaned back in his chair, arms folded, voice dropping half a register. She told me when she called that the registration had been made without her knowledge or consent. She used the words unauthorized. Use her information, her name submitted without her knowledge. When an account holder flags something like that, we follow their instructions to the letter. Your mother was very specific. She said her son might come by. She asked me to show him exactly what had been submitted under her name. He paused, letting that settle. I've been managing this park for 11 years. I've seen a lot of family situations come through that front door. This one I won't forget in a hurry. Ethan stood at the counter with the air conditioning humming above him and the linoleum floor very solid beneath his feet and tried to put together what he was hearing. Amber had registered a space at a recreational vehicle park under his mother's name, using his mother's billing information, without his mother's knowledge, so that his mother, a 62-year-old woman on a fixed retirement income, would receive the monthly invoice of $1,200 and have no legal ground to dispute it. I'd like to pay for the spot, Ethan said. His voice came out thinner than he intended. For this month. He opened his banking app. The joint account showed a balance he did not recognize. The access permissions had been changed, and his credentials no longer worked. He checked his personal account. $340. $1,200, Dale said not unkindly. Cash or card? Ethan put his phone back in his pocket. He drove home along the coast with both hands on the wheel and the radio off the same way I had driven into town the morning before. Carol Jennings told me later she had seen his car parked at the entrance to the RV park for nearly 40 minutes before it moved again. She said he looked through the windshield like a man finishing an equation he had been avoiding for a very long time. I was reading on the back porch when I heard Amber's voice rise inside the house. That particular pitch she used when a plan was forming, bright and insistent as a car alarm. 30 minutes later, all 4 of them were gone. Carol Jennings called me at 7:45. "They just walked into the tide table," she said. "Amber had on the red blazer. Gerald was holding the door like he owned the building." "Thank you, Carol." "Ray's working tonight," she added, and I could hear the satisfaction in it. "I called him this afternoon." Carol had known Ray Connolly for 11 years. Their children had gone to the same elementary school on Euclid Street. She had described what she witnessed that Monday morning in exact detail, including the words Amber had used. Ray had listened without interrupting. Then he had said very quietly that he would handle it. I set down my book. Ray Connolly had opened the Tide Table 18 years ago on the Santa Monica waterfront, the kind of restaurant where the fish came off the boat that morning and the tables had linen napkins and small candles that made everyone look like they were having the best night of their lives. 3 years ago, his son Marcus had gone into cardiac arrest in the parking lot of a grocery store on Lincoln Boulevard. The paramedics who responded had stabilized him and called ahead to California General. I had been the charge nurse on duty. Marcus Connolly was 26 years old and had a wife and a daughter who was not yet walking. He went home 11 days later. Ray had sent flowers to the ICU every month for a year afterward. Ethan told me the rest of it when he came home alone at 9:15, still in his jacket, moving through the back door with the careful steps of a man who was not entirely sure his legs would cooperate. He sat down across from me and pressed both palms flat on the table. "Ray wouldn't seat us," he said. "He came out of the kitchen himself, said he knew what Amber had said to you and he wouldn't serve her in his restaurant." And Amber. Ethan's throat moved. "She put her credit card on the counter, told him she had money and she'd pay." He paused. "The card was declined, right there in front of everyone." His voice cracked on the last word, raw and exhausted. "Her credit limit is maxed out, Mom. She's been spending on that card for months, clothes equipment things for the channel. The account is at 0. Outside, the tide moved against the rocks with the same patient rhythm it always had. Someone in the restaurant had their phone out. Ethan added, his voice dropping to almost nothing. "I saw them filming." He looked up at me, then really looked, the way he had not looked at me in months, and his eyes were red at the rims and glassy, with the particular exhaustion of someone who has held a position too long and finally let it go. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said. "I should have said something sooner." "Yes," I said gently. "You should have." They came back at 9:10. I heard the cars on the gravel, 2 doors, then 4 feet on the front path, and I set down my tea and walked to the window. Gerald had his arms folded across his chest, his chin lifted at an angle that cost him visible effort to maintain. Diane walked half a step behind him, her cardigan pulled tight despite the warm evening air. Amber was on her phone, speaking in rapid, pressured sentences to someone who was not answering the way she wanted. Ethan stood apart from the 3 of them, hands in his jacket pockets, looking at the ground. Carol Jennings was on her front porch with a glass of iced tea, watching. I picked up my phone, found the number I had saved that afternoon, and walked out the front door into the warm night air. Bob Harlan had been Gerald and Diane Whitfield's landlord in Fresno for 4 years. The folder containing his information had been mislabeled. Amber had stored it among my own tax documents, apparently using my home office printer, without asking. Sandra's assistant found it that morning, located Bob's name, Fresno address, and cell number, printed clearly at the top of a rental agreement inside, and called him directly. Bob had not needed much convincing. He called me himself at 2 o'clock, his voice carrying the particular energy of a man who'd been trying to reach someone for 3 weeks and had finally found a door that opened. I pressed the speaker button and held the phone up as I crossed the front yard toward the gate. Bob's voice came out loud and flat and entirely without diplomacy. "Is this Margaret Hollis, ma'am? I've got Gerald and Diane Whitfield. Are they on your property right now? Because they walked out on 3 months of back rent without a word, and I have been calling every number I have. I'm filing in small claims court Monday morning if I don't hear from them today." Gerald's chin came down from its angle, The color left his face in a single rapid withdrawal like a tide going out. Diane's hand flew to her mouth. Amber stopped mid-sentence on her phone call and stared at her father with an expression I had not seen on her before. Not anger, not calculation, but the raw, stripped look of a daughter realizing her parents were not what she had been selling them as. Carol Jennings set down her iced tea. "Thank you, Mr. Harlan," I said into the phone, my voice steady and carrying clearly across the front yard. "I'll pass that along." I ended the call and looked at Gerald directly. He opened his mouth. His jaw moved without producing anything useful. Diane had both arms wrapped around herself now. Her careful posture finally collapsed inward, staring at the garden path like she wanted it to open up beneath her feet. "I believe you have a call to return," I said pleasantly. I turned and walked back inside. Behind me, I heard Amber's voice, sharp, high cracking at the edges, saying, Dad, what is she talking about? What 3 months?" Gerald said nothing, and this time his silence answered everything. Sandra Okafor arrived at 9 o'clock exactly the way she always did, punctual to the point of principle, a brown leather portfolio under one arm and a coffee from the place on 4th Street in her other hand. I met her at the door before she could knock. "Is everyone home?" she asked quietly. "Ethan is in the kitchen. The Whitfields are still upstairs. Amber is somewhere between the two." Sandra nodded and stepped inside. She set her portfolio on the dining table and withdrew 2 identical envelopes, crisp white, each one bearing my address in clean printed text. She had prepared them the day before, exactly as I had asked, and held them until I gave the word. Last night, after Gerald's silence had answered Amber's question and the front yard had finally emptied, I had sent Sandra a single text message. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bring both copies." Ethan came in from the kitchen holding a mug still in the clothes he had slept in. He stopped when he saw Sandra. His eyes moved from her face to the envelopes on the table, and the mug lowered slowly in his hand. "Ethan," I said, "please sit down." He sat. Sandra spoke in the measured, unhurried tone she used when she needed someone to hear every word clearly. "Ethan, your mother has been entirely within her legal rights throughout this situation. You and Amber entered this property as licensees, not tenants. Under California law, that distinction is significant. A tenant has substantial legal protections that require formal court proceedings to override. A licensee has no such protections. The property owner may restrict access change locks and require the licensee to vacate." Ethan's jaw tightened. She already changed the locks. Yes, she was legally entitled to do so the moment she chose to. Sandra slid one envelope across the table toward him. "This is a formal notice to quit under California Civil Code Section 1946. It gives you and Amber 30 days to secure alternative housing. I am serving it to you now as the notarized agent of the property owner." Ethan picked up the envelope. His hands were steady, but his knuckles had gone pale, the blood pressed out of them by the tightness of his grip. He turned it over once, looking at his mother's address printed on the front, and something moved across his face. Not surprise, but the particular grief of a man receiving confirmation of something he had already understood. 30 days, he said. 30 days, Sandra confirmed. Amber appeared in the doorway, then still in last night's clothes, her hair pulled back with the carelessness of someone who had not slept. Her eyes locked onto the envelope in Ethan's hands, and her chin lifted sharply. "What is that?" "It is exactly what it looks like," I said. Her breath came in fast and audible, her chest rising with it. She looked at Sandra, at Ethan, at me, and for the first time since she had walked into my kitchen Monday morning and told me to pack my things, Amber Hollis had nothing to say. Ethan found it by accident the way most true things surface, not through searching, but through the ordinary act of looking for something else entirely. After Sandra left, he had gone upstairs to calculate whether his personal savings were enough to cover first and last month's rent on an apartment. He was sitting on the edge of the guest bed with his laptop open and a pile of folders from his briefcase spread across the comforter when Amber's tote bag, the expensive canvas one with the leather handles she used as a secondary purse, slipped off the chair beside the dresser and spilled across the floor. He picked up what had fallen: receipts, a lip balm, a hair tie, a folded sheet of paper that had the weight and texture of a bank statement. Amber had been meticulous about keeping the account hidden on her phone, but paper statements were a different matter. She had switched to paperless billing 8 months ago and forgotten that Pacific Premier Bank still mailed quarterly summaries by default. This one had arrived that morning, forwarded from their old Pasadena address. She had opened it, glanced at it, and tucked it into her bag without thinking. People who are careful about secrets are often careless about paperwork. He unfolded it. The account name read Amber N. Hollis. Her maiden name, initial tucked in the middle, the way people do when they want something to be findable but not obvious. The institution was Pacific Premier Bank, not the joint account they shared at First National, not any account he had ever seen or signed for or been told existed. The current balance was $18,412. Ethan sat very still on the edge of the bed and read the transaction history: designer handbags, ring lighting equipment, a mirrorless camera body, subscription boxes, a skincare package that cost more than his first car payment, brand collaboration deposits coming in on the 15th of each month, money Amber had been earning and diverting into this account for at least 14 months, while telling him consistently that they could not yet afford to move out. His hands were not shaking. That surprised him. He had expected them to shake. He thought about the RV park yesterday afternoon, the way Dale had said unauthorized use, with the careful flatness of someone who had seen this kind of thing before and knew exactly what it was. He thought about his mother's billing information entered into a reservation form by someone who had access to the filing cabinet in the home office. He thought about $1,200 a month charged to a woman on a fixed retirement income for a parking space neither of them intended to occupy. $18,000, sitting in an account he had never known existed. He set the statement down on the comforter. He did not crumple it. He did not go downstairs. He sat with both feet flat on the floor and both hands open on his knees and breathed through the particular kind of pain that does not announce itself with noise, the kind that moves in slowly, like water finding the lowest point in a room. I heard him from the hallway, not crying, not speaking, just the quality of silence that belongs to someone who has finally irrevocably run out of ways to explain away what is directly in front of them. I did not go in. I went downstairs and put the kettle on instead, because some reckonings a person has to reach entirely alone. Before I reveal what happened next, the moment that changed everything and exposed the truth, no one saw coming. Comment the number 14 below if you are still with me. I want to know you are here. Please note, certain elements of this story have been shaped for emotional and educational purposes. Details, names, and situations may be fictionalized. If this type of content is not for you, it is completely fine to step away, no hard feelings at all. Carol Jennings called me at 2:17 in the afternoon. "Margaret," she said, "I need to ask you something before I do anything with it." She had been home since the night before with the Ring doorbell footage on her mind. She had seen the original notification come through on the Neighbors app, the community alert system that connected homeowners along our stretch of the coast, because I had added her as a trusted contact on my account 2 years ago after Thomas passed, so she could keep an eye on the property when I traveled. The clip was 41 seconds long. The camera was mounted above the front entry, angled to cover both the porch and the interior hallway. That morning, Amber had been standing at the threshold between the hallway and the kitchen, not deep inside the room, but directly in the open doorway facing me at the island. The Ring device had a 160-degree wide-angle lens and a noise-filtering microphone rated for outdoor use. From that position, every word she said had been captured at full clarity. She had not known the camera was there. I had never mentioned it, and it was not visible from where she stood. The clip showed her in the kitchen doorway, finger-raised voice carrying clearly through the audio pickup. 30 years emptying bedpans and wiping down patients at a county hospital. An RV park with the smell of motor oil is honestly more your speed. It's your footage, Carol said. Your doorbell, your property. I won't share it without your word. Share it, I said. By 4 o'clock, the clip had been posted to the Santa Monica Community Facebook group, reposted twice to neighborhood forums, and picked up by 3 separate accounts on other platforms. By 5, it had reached people who had never heard of our street. I was in the garden deadheading the lavender when Amber came out the back door moving fast, phone pressed to her ear, her face the color of old chalk. She stopped when she saw me. "They're pulling my contracts." Her voice came out fractured, the confidence stripped entirely out of it, leaving something younger and rawer underneath. StyleCo sent a termination notice. 2 other brands followed. They said they cited brand values. She pulled the phone away from her ear and held it out toward me like evidence. "Did you do this?" "Carol shared footage that was recorded on my property," I said. I gave her permission to do so. Amber's mouth opened. A sound came out that was not quite a word, something between a gasp and a sob, high and involuntary, the kind of sound a person makes when the floor disappears beneath them. "My account?" She looked back at her phone fingers moving. "They're reporting it. Thousands of reports." Her voice climbed higher, cracking at the top. "It's gone. Margaret, the account is gone. 180,000 followers, and it's suspended. Permanently." She stood in my garden with the California afternoon light falling across her face and her hands shaking around the phone and her eyes filling not with the practiced emotion she performed for her camera, but with the real kind, the kind that has no audience and no filter and no second take. I looked at her for a moment. "The lavender needs water this time of year," I said. "The salt air dries it out faster than people expect." I turned back to the garden and continued what I had been doing. The sun went down over the Pacific at 8:14, and the sky turned the deep, bruised purple that only happens in summer on this coast, the kind of color Thomas used to stop whatever he was doing just to look at. I stood on the second-floor balcony with the notebook in my hands and looked down into the front yard. Ethan was there. He had been standing near the lavender beds for several minutes, his back to the house, his shoulders carrying the particular set of a man who has nowhere left to go inside his own head. He was not on his phone. He was not moving. He was just standing in the last of the light the way people stand when they are finally done pretending. He heard the balcony door and looked up. "Mom." His voice came up through the warm air, rough and stripped of everything that usually padded it. "I found the statement. Amber's account. The 18,000. "I know," I said. "I didn't know about any of it." His throat worked. "The RV registration, the account. I didn't know." "I believe you." I looked at him steadily from the balcony railing. "But Ethan, you knew enough. You heard what she said to me Monday morning. You were sitting 4 feet away, and you told me to let it go." He pressed the back of his hand against his mouth, and his eyes went bright and glassy with the effort of holding something back that wanted very badly to come out. "I know," he said, and his voice broke, on it cracked, straight down the middle, raw and irreparable. "I know, Mom. I'm sorry." I held the notebook over the railing and let it fall. It landed at his feet with a flat, papery sound. He looked down at it but did not reach for it. 30 years of night shifts," I said. "Your father's entire life insurance policy. This house is the last thing I have of him, of us, of everything we built together before he was gone." I steadied my voice against the tightness in my chest. "I raised you to be a man, Ethan, not a bystander, not someone who watches his mother be humiliated in her own kitchen and tells her to let it go." He was crying now, not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily, the tears moving down his face with the quiet persistence of something that had been held back too long. "I have asked Sandra to begin drafting the paperwork to transfer this property to the Santa Monica Medical Foundation upon my passing," I said. "This is not a punishment. It is a statement of values. If you become the man I raised you to be, the man your father believed you were, we will have a very different conversation about this house. Sandra knows that too. Nothing is final until I say it is. You have 30 days, Ethan. What you do with them belongs entirely to you. I stepped back from the railing. The door to this house, I said, has always reflected who you choose to be, not whose blood you carry. I went inside and closed the balcony door quietly behind me. Below, I heard nothing, and that nothing felt for the first time in a very long time like the beginning of something. 30 years of night shifts will do permanent things to a person's sleep. I was awake at 4:53, the way I had been awake at 4:53, almost every morning since 1994, my body still running on a schedule that had long outlasted the job that created it. I lay in the dark for a few minutes, listening to the house the way I used to listen at the start of every shift, cataloging sounds, noting absences, building a picture of what was happening beyond what I could see. The house had its own language at that hour, the refrigerator cycling on, the marine layer pressing against the windows, the particular creak of the third stair when someone's weight hit it wrong. At 5:01, I heard the first wheel of a suitcase on the hardwood floor of the hallway above me. I was out of bed and into my robe before the second one started moving. I did not hurry. I put on my slippers, tied the sash, and walked to the kitchen to start the coffee. Through the hallway camera on my phone, I watched Gerald navigate the staircase with 2 large bags, moving with the compressed efficiency of a man who had packed in a hurry and was hoping to be gone before anyone woke. His jaw was set. His eyes were fixed on the front door. He did not look toward Amber's room as he passed it. Diane followed with her carry-on, her cardigan already buttoned, her hair already arranged. She had not slept either. I could tell from the way she moved, too controlled, too deliberate, the careful walk of someone who had been awake and planning for hours. They did not knock on Amber's door. They crossed the front entry without a word. Between them, opened the door with the temporary code Gerald had been given for the duration of their visit and stepped out into the 5 o'clock dark. The code I had programmed for them was valid from their scheduled Friday arrival through the following Friday at noon, a 1-week window. Gerald's unplanned exit on Thursday morning fell well within that active window. I had programmed it that way deliberately. I wanted them to be able to leave whenever they chose. I had also, from my phone, changed the entry code the moment their Uber cleared the end of the block, 45 seconds. The old code no longer worked from that moment forward. An Uber was already waiting at the curb, its headlights cutting 2 pale lines across the front garden. They had called it the night before. I was certain of that. I set down my coffee and opened the front door. The sound stopped Gerald on the porch steps. He did not turn around immediately. He stood with his back to me, suitcase handle in his right hand, the California pre-dawn air moving around him, and I watched the muscles along his shoulders rise and fall with a single slow breath, the breath of a man assembling what little remained of his dignity. Then he turned just slightly enough for his profile to catch the porch light. "I apologize for the trouble, Mrs. Hollis." The words came out quiet and flat, entirely stripped of the boardroom authority he had carried into my front yard 48 hours ago. He was not looking at me when he said it. He was looking at some fixed point between my door and the Uber at the curb, the way people look when they are saying something, because the alternative is saying nothing at all, not because they have earned the right to mean it. I looked at him for a moment. The man who had stood on my front path 2 days ago with his hands clasped his tan and his posture and his performance of wealth, demanding $2,000 for his daughter's labor. Standing now in the dark before 5 in the morning, fleeing a house that was never his, leaving his daughter behind without a word. "Safe travels, Gerald," I said. Diane passed him on the steps without speaking. She did not look at me. She folded herself into the back seat and pulled the door shut with a soft final click that carried more shame in it than any words she might have chosen. Gerald got in after her. The car moved down the street and disappeared around the curve, its tail lights fading into the coastal dark. I stood in the open doorway with my coffee warming my hands, listening to the neighborhood settle back into its early morning quiet. Somewhere down the block, a mockingbird started up the way they do in Santa Monica, before first light running through every song they know, as if the night had given them something to say. Somewhere upstairs, I heard Amber's alarm go off, the cheerful ascending tone she used for her 6:30 content planning sessions. A pause. Then the sound of feet on the floor moving toward the hallway. Then silence, the sudden hollow kind, as she opened the door to her parents' room and found it empty. I went back to my coffee. The Pacific was beginning to lighten at the edges, that particular gray into blue that happens before the sun clears the hills. Thomas had always said that was the best hour, the one most people slept through. I had never been able to sleep through it. She knocked at 7:41. Not the sharp, impatient knock she had used on Monday morning when she wanted the seafood brought inside, or the demanding pound she had used on the front door, the evening her credit card was declined in front of a restaurant full of strangers. This was 3 quiet raps, evenly spaced, the knock of someone who has run out of leverage and knows it. I was already at the door. Amber stood in the hallway in yesterday's clothes, her hair loose around her face, her eyes swollen from a night that had clearly not involved much sleep. Without the blazer, without the ring lighting, and the carefully composed expression she wore for her camera, she looked younger than 31. She looked for the first time since I had known her like someone who was not performing anything at all. Margaret. Her voice came out rough and unsteady, scraped thin by everything that had happened since Monday. My parents are gone. My contracts are canceled. My account is... She stopped, pressed her lips together hard against whatever was trying to come through. Her chin trembled once sharply, the involuntary kind, the kind the body produces when a person has been holding something back for too long, and the muscles finally give out. She pressed her teeth together and tried again. I don't have anywhere to go. I had printed the paper before 5:30 while the coffee was still brewing. Not because I was certain she would knock, but because 30 years in emergency medicine had taught me to prepare for the outcomes other people weren't expecting. When Gerald and Diane's Uber had pulled away in the dark, I understood what the morning would bring. People without options eventually stop performing and start asking. I wanted to have an answer ready when she did. The Santa Monica Community Center on 4th Street is hiring cleaning staff, I said. Full days, 6 days a week. The work is physical and the pay is honest. I held out the paper, the job listing, and below it a short list of affordable rooms for rent within 3 miles of the center. And the broom I had taken from the kitchen closet. Amber looked at the broom. Something moved across her face. Not anger, not pride, but the particular expression of a person who has just been handed the exact size and shape of the gap between who they believe they were and who they actually are. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes went bright and glassy with the effort of not letting them fill. She took the paper with both hands. She did not take the broom, but she did not walk away either. You told me, I said quietly, that 30 years of caring for the sick was beneath dignity. I am giving you the opportunity to find out what dignity actually costs, with your own hands, one day at a time. She looked at me for a long moment. Eyes, bright, jaw set something shifting behind her face that I could not entirely name. Then she turned and walked down the hallway toward the guest room to pack her footsteps slower than I had ever heard them. Ethan was at the bottom of the stairs. He had his bag over one shoulder and the notebook, the one I had dropped from the balcony the night before, held carefully in his right hand. He'd gone back into the garden after dark and picked it up. He had not told me. He did not need to. Mom. His voice was quiet and deliberate, each word placed with the care of someone who has rehearsed them and is still not sure they are enough. I'm going to pay it back, all of it, every dollar. I know you will, I said. You are your father's son when you remember to be. His jaw worked. His eyes went bright and wet at the rims. He crossed the hallway in 3 steps and put his arms around me, and I held on. Held this man I had carried and raised and worried over and loved past every version of myself, and for just that moment, neither of us said anything because there was nothing left that words could do, that the holding wasn't already doing better. Then he stepped back, picked up his bag, and walked out into the California morning without looking back the way people walk when they have finally decided something. I stood in the open doorway and watched him go the way I had watched him go on his first day of kindergarten backpack, too large for his small shoulders, turning once at the corner to find me still there. He did not turn this time. But I stayed in the doorway until his car had gone and the street was quiet, and the only sound left was the Pacific moving against the rocks below the bluff, patient and indifferent and still going on. The lavender came back in October. It always did. Thomas had chosen the variety deliberately, one of those coastal cultivars that goes gray and woody in the heat of summer and then puts out a second flush of blooms when the marine layer rolls back in and the mornings turn cool again. He had been methodical about things like that. He liked to know that something would keep coming back. I used to tease him about it, all that careful planning just for a garden, and he would look at me with that particular patience of his and say, "Maggie, everything worth having takes tending." I had been thinking about that a lot lately. I was at the kitchen table with my coffee and a book I had been meaning to finish since July when I heard the knock. 3 times. Quiet and even, with a space between each one, the knock of someone who was not sure of their welcome and was trying not to presume. I knew it before I opened the door. Ethan stood on the front porch in a jacket I had not seen before, something plain and dark with no logo across the chest, nothing like the tech company fleeces he used to favor. He had lost a little weight. Not in an alarming way, but in the way of a man who had been keeping busy and forgetting to eat at regular hours. His eyes were clear, though, clearer than they had been in a long time. He was holding an envelope in both hands the way you hold something you have carried a distance and are relieved to finally set down. "I wasn't sure you'd answer," he said. "I always answer the door," I said. "Come in." He sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same table where Amber had made her announcements, the same table where Sandra had laid down the legal notices, the same table that had absorbed all of it without complaint and was still standing. He set the envelope between us and wrapped both hands around the coffee mug I put in front of him, thumbs hooked over the rim, exactly the way his father used to hold his. My chest tightened at the sight of it. "First installment," he said, nodding toward the envelope. $2,000. I've set up a recurring transfer for the rest monthly, first of each month. Sandra has the payment schedule on file. I picked up the envelope, looked at it for a moment, and set it on the table beside Thomas's photograph. Not in a drawer, not put away. Beside Thomas, where Ethan could see it. "I found a place," he said, "a small apartment near the office, 1 bedroom. It's enough." He paused, turning the mug slowly between his palms. "I've been cooking again. I forgot I used to do that." "Your father was the same way. The kitchen was where he figured things out." Ethan looked at the table and something moved across his face. Not grief exactly, but the particular tenderness of a memory that still has its edges. He wrapped both hands tighter around the mug and looked up. "I filed the paperwork," he said, "for the separation. The attorney says California requires 6 months before it becomes final, something in the civil code about a mandatory waiting period. But it's filed and served. It's done." He said it the way people say things they have rehearsed alone many times before saying them out loud for the first time to someone who matters. I did not ask him how he felt about it. Some things do not require the question. "I started seeing someone," he added, "a therapist. Dr. Carver over on Wilshire. She says I have a long-standing pattern of conflict avoidance that I learned early to manage other people's discomfort at the expense of my own judgment." A short pause. I told her I already knew that. She said knowing it and changing it are 2 different skills. He looked up with the faint, dry expression of a man who had just been told something obvious by someone he was paying. "Apparently, I'm working on the second one." "That's a start," I said. "Amber's still at the community center." He said it quietly, without heat, without the careful flatness of someone suppressing something, just matter of fact. I heard through someone who volunteers there on weekends. She shows up every day. She doesn't say much, apparently keeps to herself, but she's there, on time, every shift. He was quiet for a moment. "I don't know what that means for her, but it's something." "It's enough for now," I said. We sat for a while after that, the two of us with the October light coming through the kitchen window and the second flush lavender, moving in the coastal breeze outside, and the Pacific doing what it had always done, vast and patient, and entirely indifferent to the small human dramas playing out along its edge and going on. I looked at Thomas's photograph on the shelf above the stove. He was smiling in it, that particular smile of his, the one that was not triumphant, not showy, just quietly satisfied. The smile of a man looking at something he had built and finding it still standing, still sound. He would have liked this morning, I said. Ethan looked at the photograph for a long moment. The corner of his mouth lifted just slightly, just enough. Yeah, he said softly. He would have. Outside, the lavender held its color in the October light, and the Pacific went on, and the kitchen smelled of coffee. And for the first time in what felt like a very long time, the house was simply quiet, in the way that houses are quiet when the right people are in them. Looking back on everything that happened, I think about something I once heard in church, that God doesn't give you strength to avoid the storm. He gives you strength to walk through it with your head held high. I was never a woman who sought conflict, but I learned in those few days that there is a difference between keeping the peace and surrendering your dignity. I stayed quiet for 6 months too long. Don't do what I did. Don't let love become a reason to make yourself smaller. Don't wait until someone takes everything before you remember what you are worth. This is family drama at its most personal, the kind that happens behind closed doors in kitchens that smell like coffee and old grief. These are the revenge stories with mom that no one plans to live, but so many of us recognize. Family drama has a way of revealing exactly who people are when they believe the stakes are low. And revenge stories with mom are never really about revenge at all. They are about reclaiming what was always yours. Every family drama ends with a choice. Every revenge stories with mom ends with a lesson. Mine ended with lavender and coffee and my son sitting across the table from me again. If any part of this story touched your heart, leave a comment below. I read every single one. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story like this one. Thank you so much for staying with me until the very end. The stories shared on this channel contain fictional elements and are created for the purpose of emotional connection and reflection. If this type of content is not for you, we kindly invite you to explore other content that feels right for your journey.